waiting and we're waiting. Well, there we are. Now we're working. Now we're cooking with gas. Ba ba ba. Interesting. Hello, Toward the Ghoul. Welcome, welcome. Why do my eyes look like that? Kind of weird. There we go. A little bit better. Ba 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 ba. Redo. Welcome, Redo. Why do my eyes look like that? Like, is it the lighting? Is it just bad lighting? There we go. Those eyes are better. Okay, that's better. That was almost very bad. I almost dumped my water bottle all over the floor. Oh, sweet. Boop the phase. Haha. Oh, poop. I gotta reset that really quick, and then we're gonna get started, actually. The snip is doing really well. I'm doing pretty good for the most part. Got some stuff kind of going on in my personal life right now. So we're only probably going to do 2 stories today just because I have to go and handle some things. Yes, I be a snip. Why are you looking in that direction? Come on, Phaze. Come on, stay facing the right direction. Come on. Why is it so difficult? Fun times. Fun times. Like right now, he has his eyes closed. Why are your eyes closed, Phaze? Okay, is that pretty good? That looks like it's pretty good. Like, I'm still here. All right, let's. There we go. All right. All right, can you guys hear me okay? Bob. Redo. Awesome. How are you doing today, Redo? Hey everybody, thank you and welcome to Storytime with Phaze. Today we got a couple more stories. I'll only be doing 2 stories today just because I've got a lot of stuff going on that I've got to go and handle and deal with. So just giving you a heads up now. And just as a reminder, while I am doing the readings, while not always perfect, I will do my best to read exactly what is here and portray that for you as we're going along. Additional to that, though, I will not be paying attention to the chat while I'm doing a reading. So if you're trying to get my attention, you'll have to wait until I finish the story. Ooh, what game on Game Pass are you playing? And are you on? You're on Xbox. I do a lot of Xbox. Oh, police simulator. Interesting. All righty. All right. Let us get started. Also, just as a note, if you hear a clicking noise like this, please don't worry about that. It is a dog clicker. It's pretty standard practice. We use these in sound booths and stuff like that for like voice acting and whatnot. It marks a point in the story or recording where we need to do one of two things. Either there was a mistake made and we need to go back and fix that later on in editing, or it's to mark a audio point to later have the audio sync up with a video or something like that. So don't worry about the clicking noise. If you do hear it, you're not crazy. I promise you, it's actually there. It's just me clicking it in the background. Mwah. All right, let's get started. Welcome to Story. See, blah, blah, blah. Super excited. I'm just like, let's do it. And I totally run in. Welcome to Storytime with Phaze. Today we will be reading The Three Spinners by Wilfred. Ooh, I almost said it wrong there. By oh, by Wilhelm and Jacob Grimm. Let's begin. There was once a girl who was idle and would not spin, and let her mother say what she would. She could not bring her to it. At last, the mother was once so overcome with anger and impatience that she beat her, and which the girl began to weep loudly. Now, at this very moment. Oh, wait a minute. Ooh. You know what, guys? I started the wrong story, so please forgive me while I find my place. Don't be mad at me. We all make mistakes. All right, here we go. Welcome to Storytime with Phaze. Today we will be reading The Three Little Men in the Wood by Wilhelm and Jacob Grimm. There was once a man whose wife died, and a woman whose husband died. And the man had a daughter, and the woman also had a daughter. The girls were acquainted with each other, and went out walking together, and afterwards came to the woman in her house. Then said she to the man's daughter, Listen, tell thy father that I would like to marry him, and then thou shalt wash thyself in milk every morning, and drink wine. But my own daughter shall wash herself in water, and drink water. The girl went home and told her father what the woman had said. The man said, What shall I do? Marry, what shall I do? Marriage is a joy and also a torment. At length, as he could come to no decision, he pulled off his boot and said, Take this boot. It has a hole in the sole of it. Go with it up to the loft, hang it on the big nail, and then pour water into it. If it hold the water, then I will again take a wife. But if it run through, I will not. The girl did as she was ordered, but the water drew the hole together, and the boot became full to the top. She informed her father how it had turned out. Then he himself went up, and when he saw that she was right, he went to the window. He went to the widow and wooed her, and the wedding was celebrated. The next morning, when the two girls got up, there stood before the man's daughter milk for her to wash in, and wine for her to drink. But before the woman's daughter stood water to wash herself with, and water for drinking. On the second morning stood water for washing, and water for drinking before the man's daughter, as well as before the woman's daughter. And on the third morning stood water for washing, and water for drinking before the man's daughter, and the milk for washing, and wine for drinking before the woman's daughter. And so it continued. The woman became bitterly unkind to her stepdaughter, and the day by day did her best to treat her still worse. She was also envious because her stepdaughter was beautiful and lovable, and her own daughter ugly and repulsive. Once, in winter, when everything was frozen as hard as stone, and hill and vale lay covered with snow, the woman made a frock of paper, called her stepdaughter, and said, Here, put on this dress and go into the wood and fetch me a little basketful of strawberries. I have a fancy for them. Good heavens, said the girl. No strawberries grow in winter. The ground is frozen, and besides, the snow has covered everything. And why am I to go with this paper frock? It is so cold outside that one's very breath freezes. The wind will blow through the frock, and the thorns will tear it off my body. Wilt thou contradict me again? Said the stepmother. See that goust? See that thou goest, and do not show thy face again until thou hast basketful of strawberries. Then she gave her a little piece of hard bread, and said, This will last thee the day, and thought, Thou wilt die of cold and hunger outside, and wilt never be seen again by me. Then the maiden was obedient, and put on the paper frock, and went out with the basket. Far and wide there was nothing but snow, and not a green blade to be seen. When she got into the wood, she saw a small house, out of which peeped 3 dwarfs. She wished them good day, and knocked modestly at the door. They cried, Come in! And she entered the room, and seated herself on the bench by the stove, where she began to warm herself and eat her breakfast. The elves said, Give us too some of it. Willingly, she said, and divided her bit of bread in 2 and gave them the half. They asked, What dost thou here in the forest in the winter time, in thy thin dress? Ah, she answered, I am to look for a basketful of strawberries, and am not to go home until I can take them with me. When she had eaten her bread, They gave her a broom and said, "Sweep away the snow at the back door with it." But when she was outside, the three little men said to each other, "What shall we give her, as she is good, and has shared her bread with us?" Then said the first, "My gift shall be every day. My gift is that she every day grow more beautiful." The second said, "My gift is that good pieces shall fall out of her mouth every time she speaks." "My gift is that gold pieces shall fall out of her mouth every time she speaks." The third said, "My gift is that a king shall come and take her to wife." The girl, however, did as the little men had bidden her, swept away the snow behind the little house with the broom, and what did she find but a real ripe strawberries, which came up quite dark red out of the snow. In her joy, she hastily gathered her basketful, thanked the little men, shook hands with each of them, and ran home to take her stepmother and ran home to take her stepmother. Oh my goodness. And ran home to take her stepmother what she had longed for so much. When she went in and said good evening, a piece of gold at once fell from her mouth. Thereupon she related what had happened to her in the wood, but with every word she spoke, gold pieces fell from her mouth, until very soon the whole room was covered with them. "Now look at her arrogance," cried the stepsister, "to throw about gold in that way." What she was, but she was, ah, but she was secretly envious of it, and wanted to go into the forest also to seek strawberries. The mother said, "No, my dear little daughter, it is too cold. Thou mightst die of cold." However, as her daughter let her have no peace, the mother at last yielded, made her a magnificent dress of fur, which she was so obligated to put on, and gave her bread and butter and cake. The girl went into the forest and straight up to the little house. The three little elves peeped out again, but she did not greet them, and without looking around at them and without speaking to them, she went awkwardly into the room, seated herself by the stove, and began to eat her bread and butter and cake. "Give us some of it," cried the little man. But she replied, "There is not enough for myself, so how can I give it away to other people?" When she had done eating, they said, "There is a broom for thee. Sweep all clean for us outside by the back door." "Humph! Sweep for yourselves," she answered. "I am no servant." When she saw that they were not going to give her anything, she went out by the door. Then the little men said to each other, "What shall we do? What shall we give her, as she is so naughty, and has a wicked envious heart, that will never let her do a good turn to any of us?" The first said, "I grant that she may grow uglier every day." The second said, "I grant that every word she says a toad shall spring out of her mouth." The third said, I grant that she may die a miserable death." The maiden looked for her strawberries outside, but as she found none, she went angrily home. And when she opened her mouth and was about to tell her mother what had happened to her in the wood, with every word she said, a toad sprang out of her mouth, so that everyone was seized with horror of her. Drink of water. Welcome, Dwayne the Goldie. Welcome, Eric. Then the stepmother was still more enraged and thought of nothing but how to do everything possible and thought of nothing but how to do every possible injury to the man's daughter, whose beauty, however, grew daily greater. At length she took a cauldron, set it on fire, and boiled yarn in it. When it was boiled, she flung it on the poor girl's shoulder, and gave her an axe in order that she might go on the frozen river, cut a hole in the ice, and rinse the yarn. She was obedient, went thither and cut a hole in the ice, and while she was in the midst of her cutting, a splendid carriage came driving up, in which sat the king. The carriage stopped, and the king asked, "My child." Now, that's not a good voice for a king. "My child, who art thou, and what art thou doing here?" "I am a poor girl, and I am rinsing yarn." Then the king felt compassion, and when he saw that she was so very beautiful, he said to her, "Wilt thou go away with me?" "Ah, yes, with all my heart," she answered, for she was glad to get away from the mother and sister. So she got into the carriage and drove away with the king, and when they arrived at his palace, the wedding was celebrated with great pomp, as the little man as the little men had granted to the maiden. When a year was over, the young queen bore a son, and as the stepmother had heard of her great good fortune, she came with her daughter to the palace and pretended that she wanted to pay her a visit. Once, however, when the king had gone out, and no one else was present, the wicked woman seized the queen by the head, and her daughter seized her by the feet, and they lifted her out of the bed and threw her out the window into the stream, which flowed by. Then the ugly daughter laid herself in bed, and the old woman covered her up. Then the old woman covered her up over her head. When the king came home again and wanted to speak to his wife, the old woman cried, "Hush, hush! They can't, that can't be now. She is lying in a violent perspiration. You must let her rest the day." The king suspected no evil, and did not come back again until next morning. And as he talked with his wife, and she answered him, with every word a toad leaped out, whereas formerly a piece of gold had fallen out. Then he asked what that could be, but the old woman said that she had got that from the violent perspiration, and would soon lose it again. During the night, however, the scullion saw a duck come swimming up the gutter, and it said, wait, and it said,
"King, what art thou doing now? Sleepest thou, or wakest thou?"
and as he returned no answer, it said,
"And my guest, what may thy do?"
the scullion said,
"They are sleeping soundly too."
then it asked again,
"What does thy little baby mine?"
he answered, "Sleepeth in her cradle fine." Then she went upwards in the form of the queen and nursed the baby, shook up its little bed and covered it over, and then swam away again down the gutter in the shape of a duck. She came thus for 2 nights. On the third she said to the scullion, "Go and tell the king to take his sword, swing it 3 times over me on the threshold." Then the scullion ran and told this to the king, who came with his sword and swung it thrice over the spirit. At the third time, his wife stood before him strong, living and healthy as she had been before. Thereupon the king was full of great joy, but he kept the queen hidden in a chamber until the Sunday, when the baby was to be christened. And when it was christened, he said, "What does a person deserve who drags another out of bed and throws him in the water?"
"The wretch deserves nothing better," answered the old woman, "than to be taken and put in a barrel, stuck full of nails, and rolled down a hill into the water."
"Then," said the king, "thou hast pronounced thine own sentence." And he ordered such a barrel to be brought, and the old woman to be put into it with her daughter. And then the top was hammered on, and the barrel rolled down a hill until it went into the river. The end. Wow. What are you guys doing? No, Eric, you are not late this time. Welcome, welcome. I am not gonna lie, my voice is actually really tired today. I think it's a good thing that we're only gonna do 2 stories. This next one's pretty short, so I'm actually just gonna kind of hang out with you guys for a bit. Oh, you're recording some guitar. What are you recording? Who else is here? Shows that there's multiple people on. Who else is on right now? Is Redo still here? Oh. Do you also sing, Eric? Oh, that's cool, Redo. What restaurant? Or what kind of food? You don't have to tell me the restaurant. What kind of food you getting? Ooh, nice. Italian. That could be fun and tasty and yummy and scrumptious. Sounds like a cat being strangled. Oh, I doubt it's that bad. Alexa, continue music. Ah, you're booping me. Don't do it. Oh. Thank you guys for joining me while I'm on my break at the moment between stories. We'll start on the second story here in just a little bit. And I gotta give my voice a bit of a break and drink some water. I need the water so bad. Some waters. Zero. Vio, vio. Wow. Yes, I will still be doing the question of the day live later. At least I'm planning to still do it. You're silly. The game's very calming. Oh, that's good. I mean, the purpose of video games really is just to be fun, have an interesting experience, and, you know. So if you find it calming, that's awesome. As long as you enjoy it, that's what matters. I've been playing a game recently called Brotato, which I find very interesting. It's very simple. It's a very simple game, but I've been finding it a lot of fun, challenging, calming. It's a great way to like decompress from between things. Haha. I'm a ghost. Now you see me, now you don't. Oh yeah, I'm a ghost. Alexa, play Her by Green Day. Oh, she. I don't remember the song that well. To Well, unfortunately, Eric, I can't. Huh. Yeah, I guess I forgot that song was even called that, I guess. Oh, just a few more minutes, guys, and then we'll start on the next story. Blah, 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 blah. And yo. Ba da ba da ba 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 ba. Yeah. Mama Lee, welcome. Welcome. Oh. Redo's getting Italian. Eric's doing guitar. I'm sitting in a booth. What's Mama Lee doing? Okay, never mind. They're gone. Shadow has joined. Welcome, Shadow. Just so you know, we are in between projects at the moment, in between stories at the moment, Shadow. Taking a little bit of a break, giving my voice a bit of a break before we start on the next one. So welcome, Shadow. Gonna you. It's alright, yeah. Wow. All right, Eric, have a great one. Thank you for so much for checking this out. I appreciate it. We will see you at question of the day here in a couple hours. Here in about an hour. Bye. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Redo, have you played Brotato yet? It's a fun little game. All right, just a little bit more water, and then we're going to start on this next story. It's a fun little game. I really enjoy it. Might stream it or something. Actually, this Friday. Oh no, I dropped my clicker. Alrighty. Just make sure everything's good. Blah, 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 blah. Red leather, yellow leather. Red leather, yellow leather. All right. Let's start on the next story. Alexa, stop music. I mean, if you're looking for a game that actually has like some depth to it and stuff like that, maybe a storyline, it's definitely not the game. It doesn't have any of that. It's pretty straightforward, but it's fun. It's fun. I am enjoying it. All right. Welcome to Storytime with Phaze. Today we'll be reading The Three Spinners by Wilhelm and Jacob Grimm. There was once a girl who was idle and would not spin, and let her mother say what she would. She could not bring her to it. At last the woman was once so overcome with anger and impatience that she beat her. And which... Oh, wait. I gotta start over. Sorry about that, guys. False alarm. False start. False start. False start. Come on. Catch up. Catch up. All right. All right. Welcome to Storytime with Phaze. Today we'll be reading The Three Spinners by Wilhelm and Jacob Grimm. There was once a girl who was idle and would not spin, and let her mother say what she would. She could not bring her to it. At last the mother was once so overcome with anger and impatience that she beat her. On which the girl began to weep loudly. Now, at this very moment, the queen drove by, and when she had heard the weeping, she stopped her carriage, went into the house, and asked the mother why she was beating her daughter, so that the cries could be heard out on the road. Then the woman was ashamed to reveal the laziness of her daughter, and said, I cannot get her to leave off spinning. She insists on spinning forever and ever, and I am poor and cannot procure the flax. Then answered the queen, There's nothing that I like better than spinning, and I am never happier than when the wheels are humming. Let me have your daughter with me in the palace. I have flax enough, and there shall spin as much as she likes. The mother was heartily satisfied with this, and the queen took the girl with her. When they had arrived at the palace, she led her up into 3 rooms, which were filled from the bottom to the top with the finest flax. Now, spin me this flax, she said, and when thou hast done it, thou shalt have my eldest son for a husband. Even if thou art poor, I care not for that. Thy I do not know this word. I have not heard this word. So bear with me. We're learning to... Okay.
I care not for that. Thy indefatigable industry is dowry enough.
The girl was secretly terrified, for she could not have spun the flax. No, not if she had lived till she was 300 years old, and had sat at it every day from morning till night. When therefore she was alone, she began to weep, and sat thus for 3 days without moving a finger. On the third day came the queen, and when she saw that nothing had been spun yet, she was surprised. But the girl excused herself by saying that she had not been able to begin because of her great distress at leaving her mother's house. The queen was satisfied with this, but said when she was going away,
Tomorrow thou must begin to work.
When the girl was alone again, she did not know what to do, and in her distress went to the window. When she saw 3 women coming toward her, the first of whom had a broad, flat foot, the second had such a great underlip that it hung down over her chin, and the third had a broad thumb. They remained standing before the window, looking up, and asked the girl what was amiss with her. She complained of her trouble, and then they offered her their help, and said,
If thou wilt invite us to the wedding, not be ashamed of us, and wilt call us thine aunts, and likewise wilt place us at the table, we will spin up the flax for thee, and that in a very short time.
With all my heart, she replied. Do but come in and begin the work at once. Then she let the 3 strange women and cleared. Then she let in the 3 strange women and cleared a place in the first room, where they seated themselves and began their spinning. The one drew the thread and trod the wheel, the other wetted the thread, the third twisted it, and struck the table with her finger. And as often as she struck it, a skein of thread fell to the ground, that was spun in the finest manner possible. The girl concealed the 3 spinners from the queen, and showed her whenever she came the great quantity of spun thread, until the latter could not praise her enough. When the first room was empty, she went to the second, and at last I lost my spot. I'm sorry, guys. When the first room was empty, she went to the second, and at the last to the third. Oh no. Something froze. Phaze froze. That should be better. Is it? What? There we go. Sorry about that, guys. All right, where were we? We're going to start right back here. The girl concealed the 3 spinners from the queen, and showed her whenever she came the great quantity of spun thread, until the latter could not praise her enough. When the first room was empty, she went to the second, and at last to the third, and that too was quickly cleared. Then the 3 women took leave and said to the girl,
Do not forget that thou hast promised us. It will make thine fortune.
When the maiden showed the queen the empty rooms and the great heap of yarn, she gave orders for the wedding, And the bridegroom rejoined, and the bridegroom rejoiced that he was to have such a clever and industrious wife, and praised her mightily. I have 3 aunts, said the girl, and as they have been very kind to me, I should not like to forget them in my good fortune. Allow me to invite them to the wedding, and let them sit with us at the table. The queen and the bridegroom said, Why should we not allow that? Therefore, when the feast began, the 3 women entered in the strange apparel, and the bride said, Welcome, dear aunts. Ugh, said the bridegroom, how comest thou these odious friends? Thereupon he went to the one with the broad flat foot, and said, How do you come by such a broad foot? By treading, she answered. By treading? Then the bridegroom went to the second, and said, How do you come by such falling lips? By licking, she said. By licking. Then he asked the third, How do you come by your broad thumb? By twisting, she answered. By twisting. By twisting the thread. On this the king's son was alarmed and said, Neither now nor ever shall my beautiful bride touch a spinning wheel. And thus she got rid of the hateful flax spinning. The end. Well, that was an interesting one. Yoshi, aw, thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh. Well, fluffs up, Phaze. What's up with that? Blah. Blah. That'll be the last story that we read today. I've got some stuff I've got to go do. But I can't thank you guys enough for joining in. I'm super awesome. I hope you enjoyed yourselves and had some fun and got to hear some stories. I hope that I entertained you. But on that note, if you enjoyed today's... Jesus, dog. I don't know if you can hear my dog. She's snoring. Hey, stop snoring. You're really loud. You're so loud. I hear you snoring. All right, but on that note, if you enjoyed today's tale, please consider liking and or subscribing. If you'd like to ensure you don't miss a future live or post, be sure to hit the bell icon. And if you'd like to and if you'd like to further support me and help the channel grow, be sure to check out my Linktree where you can find my Patreon account. Until next time, thank you for listening.